Before I start sharing methods of consciousness expansion, let's begin with some scale. There are 7 levels of consciousness as represented by the 7 chakras in the body, the 7 days of creation in the Bible, the 7 colors in a rainbow, the 7 levels of ultraviolet frequency, and of course, the 7 frequencies of our consciousnesses. Our world has most people at level 4 or level 5. Level 4 is required to understand the hearts of others, and level 5 is required to communicate your heart to another heart, essentially to translate your world into a commonly understood world, or the world created by the heart of another. Level 5 is quite common, and those with this level of consciousness are usually decently successful, as this gives them a huge edge in business against level 4 consciousnesses. Level 4 consciousnesses have enough power to make it through life, but generally struggle to properly express themselves to the world. A level 3 consciousness is quite rare in our society, and these people would be considered psychopaths if they actually had enough cleverness or resource to succeed. But they are usually outcasts, become homeless, and die, because mankind is beyond that now. Level 6 is equally as rare as level 3, and these are the people with vision. These are CEOs, innovators, starters of movements, and more. Anything below level 3 would be as an animal to us, and if someone actually became level 7, they would likely change the face of the world for an ion, creating an entirely new faith and way of seeing the world. The last known level 7 was Jesus Christ, to give you perspective. Let us begin with level 1. This level is the very beginning of human awareness, and came about as we transitioned from animal to man. After we learned the final lessons of the body, we were finally given our own minds. Self-awareness was born. However, this awareness was almost wholly based in survival. When Adam and Eve ate of the fruit of good and evil and were blessed with self-awareness, which is what knowing the difference between good and evil is, they immediately covered themselves before God, because they were acutely aware of their vulnerabilities. The bliss of ignorance was removed, but the blessing of seeing within was gifted. And by seeing within, man could see he was separate from the world, no longer one with nature. The blessing of this level is to know oneself, and the curse is to know oneself, to know that you are vulnerable. Master the curse, then only the blessing remains. However, mastering the curse leads to the next curse at level 2. Level 2 began when man banded together, made small tribes for the beginnings of agriculture, and generally felt safe and secured in living into the future. He could finally think past his own survival and success. This led to the next realization, blessing and curse. The realization was that with self-awareness came self-creation. The blessing was that man could now envision how he could shape himself and others, and even shape the world and his tribe. The curse is that with creation also comes destruction. However, the blessing of creation sated the previous curse of self-vulnerability, because man could create alliances with others, create tools for fighting, create systems to maintain food resource, and shape himself as one able to handle danger. Now you might think this is a massive jump, but each jump in consciousness is squared, meaning that the growth of consciousness is asymptotic. When one level is achieved, it creates a reflection in the darkness of what has yet to be. When that reflection of non-self is integrated with self, what was before is doubled. This means that level 2 is twice that of level 1. Creating oneself is far beyond being aware of oneself. Now, one can be aware of what he is making himself into. Then, as logic follows, level 3 is twice that of level 2, or 4 times that of level 1. Level 3 came about at the birth of nations, and was the main human level of consciousness until the fall of Rome. The third level of consciousness has once again a realization, a blessing, and a curse. The realization is that with self-creation eventually came the will to power, or the will to the freedom to create one's image upon the world. The blessing that comes with this is the desire to be strong and an even greater discipline to create oneself in such a way to obtain power and freedom, to create what you are in society. The curse is oppression, and not just on the weak. Always remember that in the obtainment of power there is often the loss of self, learning that you are oppressed by the will of the people. A leader would be oppressed by duty, responsibility, and appearing strong. Should he fail and fall to decadence, he will lose the faith of the people from whose faith his power is derived. This curse leads us to find that the price of power is responsibility, and that no one is truly free. And that oppression does not come from the leader or the people, it comes from the will to power itself. And the leaders do receive that fame, but they do not get to create themselves. Roman culture is Roman culture. While it was influenced by Caesar, it was created by the entire nation itself. So no one man can lay claim to that world. Well, perhaps one man can at level 7, that is. But I digress. Lastly, we can see that this is double that of level 2. Where we had self-creation, we now double that into reflecting oneself into society, making history, leaving one's mark. Man is no longer just creating himself, he is now increasing his ability to create through training, giving or receiving faith. He is now creating cultures, ways of being that reflect himself, and allow for the creation of nations. Nations which are far more impervious to the curse of level 2 consciousness, which is destruction, because power can defend against that curse. Now the 4th level may have taken the longest time for us humans to reach. This is because it is the midpoint in the frequency band of human consciousness, the frequency band which is the first step out of beasthood. It is different than others in a significant way. The first 3 are about self. They are higher levels of realizing one's self in the world as a separate entity. Level 4 begins to bring us back together, and again, there is a realization, a blessing, and a curse at this level. Now each lead to the other, as you can see. At level 3, of which Rome is a great example, the world was all about power, influence, and greatness. Your personality didn't matter much, but it did matter what you were capable of achieving and creating. Level 4 flipped that on its head, with the realization of compassion. This realization allowed one to see a reflection of himself in others. Empathy was realized, and the logical understanding that we are actually creating each other. So if you hurt someone or kill someone, you are hurting yourself as well, because that pain will come back to you. For example, an evil king will bring about the reflection of his evil in the people, and that ill intent, even if only subtly acted on, will cause a chain reaction of events that eventually bring evil upon the king, and to counter, he must use evil again. It was a cycle broken by forgiveness, broken by understanding. Upon this level, it is no longer about strength, but about wielding strength in a just and harmonious way. For evil is reflected back to the sender, but good is also reflected back to the sender. This was shown to us through the story of Jesus, who taught that what mattered more than winning is how you win, and that the will to power must be tempered by the good for all and the good within. And by all accounts, Jesus lost the game in his life, but by virtue of how he played the game, he left a deep and lasting impression in his followers, who spread that love and eventually made all of Rome, the country that executed him, into his followers, into Christians. Now, Jesus was not simply the first man to move to level 4 consciousness. In order for him to create something so great, he was likely a level 7 consciousness, and was able to see the way in which to move man into level 4. Now, the blessing of level 4 is to understand yourself and the hearts of others, and form strong relationships based on trust, through the understanding that the good is not only what is good for you, but that there is a greater good beyond you that is objective and within all of us, and is the good that is good for all. The curse is something we still deal with today, as there are still many level 4s in the world. The curse is envy and resentment of those who are greater than you. It is no longer a matter of just who is winning and who is not. Now man feels that the mere existence of those who are better than him is a form of evil, because it reveals his own shadow. The weak begin to feel entitled to the riches of the strong. Level 4 sated the previous curse, because man now has a standard of goodness, and this buffers man's ability to enforce his will on others, and to let others' wills be enforced on him. It's all filtered through what is good. Though one could say we are now oppressed by the concept of good, but that's like saying we are oppressed by the concept of harmony, which is a reflection of God himself. I'm okay with that. And it's interesting how it took someone so great in order to bring the West into level 4. The East, however, seemed to move to level 4 earlier, but stagnated for some reason, because level 5 took off during the Enlightenment of the 17th century. Now, level 4 is likely the predominant level of consciousness in the world. However, There is now quite a large number of level 5s. In fact, you can tell pretty quickly who's level 5 and who's level 4. Level 5 people have a much greater command of words, which place a lot of successful businessmen here. Now, as 5 is twice that of 4, level 5 can not only see the reflection of himself in the hearts of others, he can now alter the hearts of others through the magic of his own. And here's where it doubles. He can now manipulate the perception of what is good in the hearts of others. The realization of level 5 is the story of the hearts of men. The blessing is that the ability to express your own story to others and understand the stories of your friend. This brings about a greater unification for all of us, because this, like all things, fractal. There is a story of society, the story of humanity, the story of the company you work at, the story of your religion, the story of, well, anything you can think of. And people can now place themselves in a role in one of these stories, creating a beautiful little drama of harmony. And based on the narrative of these stories and how they come together, each person has an idea of what the good is, and that can be manipulated with stories. For example, Joe's identity becomes Joe with the story of Christianity, the story of being a salesman, the story of being a father, and the story of liking video games. Suddenly, with few details, you can know the story of Joe. The curse, however, for this level of consciousness is a great one, and is the greatest curse of our day. The curse is propaganda. The curse is a false narrative. The curse is a story that lies. Putting people in a false narrative, making them think they are doing something good, is a way to bypass the filter of goodness from level 4. It is a way to bring about a type of hidden oppression, where the people don't know they are oppressed. They are told they are living their greatest lives, yet they are not free. And today this is often done through resentment and envy. The curse of level 4. Now, the blessing of level 5 does help with the curse of level 4 because you can see yourself as a part of something greater. You can see the whole story, rather than just your own part. However, of course, the curse still remains. Now, the reason propaganda is so bad is that only people of level 5 consciousness can see through it, and not all of them at that. The majority of the world is still at level 4, which means that they will be fooled every damn time. Although, funny enough, the pain that being fooled causes in level 4s is likely the very thing that will raise them to level 5, or kill them. Evolution is messy. Now, to start with the tips of raising consciousness from level 4 to 5, and I am skipping anything below this because if you are a level 3, you're too stupid to understand this channel, simply put. And I can't give you tips for level 7 because I am not there yet. Okay, so from 4 to 5 is about the realization of the story. So how do you realize the story that you are within? First, you have to realize your own story. You have friends, family, lovers, enemies, superiors, inferiors, a job, a religion, hobbies that you have, and so on. There are many titles to the people around you and the things around you. Okay, so focusing on the people, think about the feelings elicited around each person. Think about the situation in which you met each person. If you have enough of each type, you will realize that they are pretty much the same. Each enemy you have had, you likely met in a somewhat similar fashion, emotionally speaking, and they probably gave you the same feelings, maybe even said some of the same things. Now ask yourself this: are you deciding that these people are your enemy, lover, or friend? Do you create the emotions yourself? Do you create the situation yourself? Do they create the situation for you? Now, if this was true, couldn't you simply choose to not have enemies? And wouldn't most people choose that? And couldn't you simply change how you feel around others to make everyone your friend? Or are you subject to the situation? Do enemies come about due to your feelings, or their feelings, or due to competition, jealousy? Do lovers come about due to a mutual feeling of lust, or do they come about due to a matching set of circumstances from which you both eagerly can capitalize on? Do you decide your own fate, or are you an actor on the stage? playing your role relative to someone else's role. Being pulled by the strings of a story greater than your own. Deep thought on these questions should bring you to level 5 if you are ready. And I'll give you a hint to help you along the way. The answer is both. You control your story, but stories also control you. But you need to figure out why that is the answer. Level 6 is once again double that of level 5. At level 6, one can not only change the hearts of others by knowing their story, but can also change the whole damn story itself. Level 6s have been around for quite some time, with some very early ones even coming about in medieval times. However, they were extremely rare until now, where they are a little bit less rare, but still less than 1% of the population. Those who can understand my channel are likely level 5 or level 6, maybe some level 4s. The blessing of a level 6 consciousness is that he gains extreme vision forwards and backwards in terms of cause and effect. He can see the butterfly effect of events that lead to the future. But everyone can do that, right? At least to some degree. Well, where it is different is that a level 6 can notice the cycle of empires, hijack it to subtly put into motion a 100-year plan that slowly degrades the spirit and faith of the West, shifts the gender superpolarity balance, weakens the people with decadence, hides the most important aspect of education curiosity, in favor of memorization of propaganda and useless facts, until the majority of people are slightly hermaphroditic idiot zombie slaves, to which the zombies lose so much passion, so much will, that they, through their fear and ignorance, ask the elites to create a system by which the elite rule over them all. They ask the elite to enslave them into communism, and through the altered stories and propaganda of capitalism, feminism, racism, and inequality, see it as just. Just an example, though. Now, the curse of level 6 is the Devil's Curse, and our greatest test. The Devil's Curse is an obsession with control and an arrogance that believes that one can create an ultimate order, a paradise. This extremely powerful vision of a paradise often blinds level 6 people to the horrible deeds they may do in order to see out their vision. They become utilitarian. They can change the stories into something that manipulates the people into carrying out the goals that they envision. However, they often forget that perhaps these stories are connected and exist for some reason. That the only path to paradise is through the true stories of life. The story of family, the story of the role of a mother and a father, the adventure of a young man, the natural differences of race, the spiritual need of faith, and the nature of curiosity in the unknown. False narratives are false because they are not true to the heart, and what is not true to the heart is met with toxicity, a toxicity that may be manipulatable, but will ultimately end in destruction. They forget that people are not machines that can be programmed with a story. The stories of man are not created by him. They are something more, a reflection of man's nature, a nature that falls to great disharmony when put under something unnatural. Now, even though it is scary, tips to get to level 6 is to understand how to play higher laws on lower ones. Higher stories can alter lower ones, and that perspective is everything. One's story is their perspective, their way of viewing the world, and one's perspective will affect one's actions. Control the narrative, control the world. And I will leave it at that, with no hints, because one must be ready for this level. A level 7 consciousness finally sees why the stories are the way they are, why man's nature is the way it is. The ultimate cause and effect, the fact that man is but a microcosm of the macrocosm, and the vastness of the universe is contained within the tiniest particle of sand, that man is a child of the sun and the earth, destined to a portion of their vast nature. But also, by seeing within, man can shape the environment that shapes him, and doing this naturally will ultimately only build upon what he already was, growing that infinite golden spiral of life, the good, the harmony from which all things emerge. However, going against that nature is possible, and man can obtain an unnatural nature, a nature away from the good, a nature away from harmony. But man cannot sustain himself as a being that betrays itself, for the good is the source of him, and anything outside that source dies and returns to it. Level 7 sees the ultimate connection. Level 7 sees the God within you, and the God pervading in all things. Silent but constant. Go with harmony and get life. Go against and find death. The earth is in just the right place for the creation of life. It is in harmony with the sun. Humanity, too, must be in harmony to grow. And that harmony is usually quite simple. It's the most natural thing. Just look to children, the uncorrupted, to know what it is. In seeing this, level 7 realizes that man is the same as God because all things are God. And as the spiral grows, it gets harder and harder to keep it connected to source, to keep it in harmony. But as it grows, the greater we become. And if maintained in harmony, can shine in a greater reflection of the good, the ultimate source of all things. Now, the curse of level 7 is to realize that creation can only be done in good faith, that the good determines all, and that those who cause evil are simply lost or confused. This brings a great peace, a great enlightenment, but with it comes a disengagement with life. This detachment with the world is a great sadness, but also a great strength. A level 7 knows what is good, at least on the consciousness band of man. He can heal the world, realigning us with the base source, with the good. Forgiveness was the great lesson we needed to beat the curse of level 3, and through that lesson, well, we lost much, but gained the ability to go farther, to get to the level 5, and edging on level 6 where we are now. Level 7s are great healers or shepherds of the way and the truth. And to even begin to understand how they see things, imagine this. From beast to man, we became self-aware. From level 6 to level 7, we reach the end of our spectrum, and the amalgamation of all 7 levels becomes the first level of the next dimension of awareness, of the next spectrum of 7. And this awareness is God awareness, all awareness. At least in the way the good expresses itself in our local system of stars. Perhaps, likely, there is a more balanced, harmonized good that is beyond the good we can see as man on earth. All things fractal. And the good of our world is in disbalance to a greater good, to a greater God. Who knows? Again, all things fractal, and the golden spiral is infinite, deepening and growing at the same time. And within it, we too, in a way, are infinite. The divine spark within all things never dies. The divine spark within you never dies.